Hello, this is Mose Jacobs for DeBarra Spoken Words. And I'm talking with Kemi George Simpson about her um, reading and other things on the 6th of November, because she will be our special guest at that session. Hello, Kemi, how are you today?
Hi, Megan. Good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, and in the blazing sunshine, which is a bit weird because it's 21st of October, but there you go. The sunny side of climate change, as I like to say.
Mm.
Um, okay, so could you tell me a little bit? You're obviously a writer, that's why you're here at this point in time, because we're about spoken and written word actually. Um, could you tell me a little bit about your relationship to writing? Did you start very young? How did you meet the writer in yourself?
I think what it was for me was it was about expression. I think
Okay,
I had a lot of emotion. I think I'm a very emotional person, and I think to stop myself from getting completely um, submerged in my emotions and the emotions around me, I think I turned to writing. And I kind of did lots of teenage angsty poems at a time. Um, and I kind of, that was just a great way of also, I suppose, sorting things out for myself. So it was maybe like uh, therapeutic. And so I did that as a teenager and then kind of went back a few times, but I didn't really start until my kids were teenagers. So it
okay,
was a few years ago. And I suppose it was all the different things they were going through. I have four mixed heritage boys,
okay.
and they're very lively
That
boys.
must be really challenging as well. Yeah.
And so I thought I was writing about them, and I thought I was kind of trying to work through things for them and about them. But I think really a lot of it was for me as well to help me kind of cope with the craziness because boys are very lively. My boys were particularly lively and even hyperactive. Um, and and they being mixed, they were kind of in a space that was very uncomfortable and challenging in lots of different ways. They found it hard to be accepted by the Black community and found it very hard to be accepted by the Irish white community.
Okay,
Um,
because I mean, you told me recently that you grew up in London, but you moved to Cork. You're now living in Cork City,
yeah,
as far as I
that's
know.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit about this move? And did it involve all of your kids, or do you all have them all here, or are some of them in the UK?
Yeah, I had three children here. I've got four Cork boys. I came here with a toddler. He was 2 years and 2 months. And then I had three other children here. And so they're very Cork, and all of them have gone through Gaelscoil.
Oh,
Um,
and well,
Also, they went to Irish secondary schools. The last one, he's about to go to secondary school next year, but he's in a Welsh school. So, yeah, they're very Cork, very, very Cork boys.
did you say
Um,
they went to a Gael school, secondary school in
yeah,
Cork? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even know there was one. And did you find it? I mean, I don't know about your partner, but did you find it hard to because I don't I think did you also learn Irish to help them with their homework or something like that, or wasn't that
Yeah.
not necessary? You did.
Well, my son made a comment. He said that I am the mother who he thinks has tried the most and failed the most as well. I went to so many different courses and this lovely community centre and at the school as well, and lots of coffee mornings speaking Irish. And I just couldn't learn. I can't. And I actually, when I was at university, I discovered that I'm probably dyslexic. I didn't do the full test. I did like an introductory test, and I never had the money for the full test. But my second son is dyslexic, and we tested him. And so, like, apparently, one of the things with dyslexia is that you actually find it hard to learn other languages. And so I could never learn the language. And there was a stage where, I'd say common things I don't know, like buscalone, put your buscalone in your molluscala. And my boys would be like, don't say those words. We can't bear them, because my accent is so bad. Do you know what I mean?
And could you translate for the uninitiated what that
Okay.
means?
So, I mean, they're really simple words, like buscalone is your lunchbox.
Okay.
Marla is your school bag.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's something that you'd say every single day. And every time I'd say it, my sons, their ears were aching from my bad pronunciation. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I did
Interesting.
learn, and I haven't learned, but it's a beautiful language, and
It
I
is.
wish I could. Yeah.
And a
So,
very difficult language for
yeah.
for almost everyone who don't grow up, immersed in that language because their parents speak it, or because they're in a Gaeltacht or whatever. But it's interesting. I think if they say if you learn more languages, like your sons have English and Irish, then it becomes easier to learn even more
Yeah.
languages.
If you do it at a young age,
Yeah.
then you're more able, because the channels in your brain, they're open and more receptive. And also, we stop hearing certain sounds after about the age 20.
Okay.
We actually can't differentiate between sounds, and it starts that young. So, no. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a wonder that I'm a writer at all. I wake up every morning and I'm still dyslexic. So for me, it's been very hard to read, and I've struggled with reading all my life. But my reading is getting better, because I read and I listen to things. I read incredibly slowly, and my spelling is just, at this stage, it's just humorous, I can spell the same word 3 times differently in the same paragraph.
Okay, but we have spell checkers.
Yeah, but the thing is, which is really funny, and I suppose people at the college at UCC would appreciate this, that my spelling is so bad that the spell check doesn't recognize it anymore. So the spell check just gives up on me,
Okay.
basically. So, because you can't recognize that word as English. So, but as I went on, because I just finished the master's in creative writing, and my writing has got better, and my spelling has got a bit better now. I can kind of go back and recognize some of my faults, and make them better enough for spell check to understand and check them.
Okay.
It might sound unusual for someone who's not dyslexic, but hopefully people who are dyslexic, they'll be listening, they'll be like, yeah, we get it.
Actually, there are quite a few writers who are dyslexic.
Yeah, there are.
Especially
And one of the people who I've really loved and cherished over the years is the late Benjamin Zephaniah.
Oh, yeah. He
And
was dyslexic as well.
yeah, and he's amazing poet, amazing writer, not just a poet, he's written novels as well, and he never let his dyslexia get in the way. But when it came to reading extracts from his novels, he'd usually employ an actor, and he would write poems with words that are so interchangeable that when he was performing them, because even when he's reading his own poems, he found it hard, so he would use interchangeable words so that he could mix and match, and it wouldn't be essential for him to read the exact thing or to memorize the exact thing. So,
okay. Could you tell me, because you said you started to write about your boys and then went into biographical writing, or fiction, or poetry, or all of the above?
yeah, I suppose I did kind of start expressing things about the boys, and then I think I just, like, my head is busy and I'm interested in lots of things, and so if something really grips me, then I'll write about it, and so I kind of follow that, really. But for me, a long time, and it still is, I mean, race is a huge issue, and I just felt it was really important to write about race. And I know that some people are quite allergic to that now. because, oh, for goodness sake, I'm Black, I can write about something else. And I can write about other things, and I delight in writing about other things, but I think it's important to write about race as well. And, there are all sorts of things. I mean, one of my poems that I did for the slam, for the Munster Slam, was about Nike, about branding, about labels. And I just feel that, these big companies have oppressed mammies for years and children, that if you're not dressed in a certain way, if you don't have the latest whatever, then, you're just wrong, And so, I've got a poem called Branding, and I try to express my feelings about that.
But also in a wider sense, branding.
Yeah, in a wider sense.
Race and branding. I mean, that's what people do, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there is. I mean, that poem, to be honest, doesn't talk about race, but branding is, I wanted that title because I felt that it did have, a broader meaning,
Yeah.
Because they want to possess us, they want to own us, by, making us feel inadequate unless we have them, unless we invest in them. And they've got us, really, because unless, we spend certain amounts every year, then we're inadequate. And I just kind of wanted to challenge that and look at what's behind it. So in that poem, I speak about the people who are actually making the shoes as well. And I think about the Cambodian workers who, when the factory closed, they didn't get their severance pay, and they had to go all the way to the Olympics in Paris and campaign against Nike, who were massive sponsors. So I kind of touch on that in that poem as well. Obviously, not in the way that I've spoken to you about it, but it's there. So it's just trying to have a consciousness that, what are we buying into and what do we want to control us? And I suppose for me, like, I've had to buy into it, and I still have to buy into it to an extent.
Because of your kids.
Because of my kids, like I have, for myself, I buy charity clothes. That's all I buy. I don't buy new clothes, and I'm really pleased with that, but I buy new shoes, I buy new coats when I need to. And because of my kids, I have to buy into it to an extent because they live in a certain context.
Yeah.
And for me, I have to struggle with how hypocritical that is. And I suppose I work that out in the poetry. And I suppose that's what I've always done. Like I was saying at the beginning, poetry is always quite a therapeutic thing for me. So even though I'm speaking against them, I'm also kind of working through it in my own head and trying to work out what my response would be. So it's a challenge to me as well.
Yeah. And work out what your feelings are based on, or something like a feeling of discomfort. Where does that come from?
Where it comes from. Yeah, because I think a lot of it is that I feel a great sense of manipulation, and I feel I'm being manipulated and my children are being manipulated. What's that about? Why can't they feel happy with themselves unless they have this? Why are their friends saying, oh, you don't have quality clothing, or oh, that's not the latest thing, and that affects them so much, but then I suppose you could go deeper and you can ask, maybe it affects some people more than others, and who would it affect as well? So that's another thing to look at as well. So
you mentioned the word slam, or the can you explain a little bit about slam poetry, and can you explain your current position in the slam world?
Yeah, because I actually don't know what slam poetry is. I really don't know. I haven't got a clue. And I think it can almost be anything. And I think that there are distinct things between performance poetry and paper poetry. And I'm kind of just working that through because I feel like I'm very new to poetry. This is a new area for me and I'm so excited about it. But I entered a new decade last year and I just thought, I'll challenge myself. And so I went to, I think it was in Waterford, the Munster Slam in Waterford last year. And I just wondered, could I perform a poem and see what it would be like? And so I performed and I came third in Munster area and I was delighted. And I thought I'd try it out again this year. And this year I did it again. And I suppose with slam, like historically, I really lack confidence with performance. And performing for Africa Day has really helped me. People have been really encouraging and really patient with me. And so every time I perform, I'm just very, very nervous. I've got a lot of kind of anxiety to overcome. And I thought this year I was just a lot more confident, and I felt confident in the poems. And there was a nice gang of us that went up to this year, went up to Limerick from Cork. And I just thought, just try it. It's just going to be fun. And I won. I was like, wow. And I thought I knew that the performances were really good. I was really happy with them. But there were a few people who were just so good at slam poetry. And I just thought, I could never, be on their level. So, I was delighted. And I think, just going to the slams, I think really, if you have a poem that you believe in, and obviously you have to memorize it at this stage, they might change the rules. If you can memorize it and if you can perform it with meaning, then I think that that's a slam poem.
Yeah, that's the idea. You have to perform there. You don't have. Are you allowed to have a piece of paper in front of you or not?
You have to memorize. You have to memorize, and there's no props.
Okay.
You have to memorize, and it has to be within 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. And this you won this with the poem branded.
So I won with I did a Villanelle.
What is a Villanelle?
So Villanelle is a certain type of ancient French poem, and it's a poem that has a lot of repetition and it has rhyme in it. And I like the repetition of a Villanelle. And I think I've written about 5 Villanelles this year. And with the repetition, I think it can be something which is very meditative for some poems, and it kind of builds up a crescendo. Like I'm trying to remember the name of Sylvia Plath. She has an amazing Villanelle called the Mad Girls Villanelle. And so that for me really tutored me. So it's kind of something that builds up in a crescendo, and it can either be meditative or it can almost be like tormenting, And I suppose this poem, it was called There is a Palm Tree by Adel Zorob's Apartment. That's the quite long name. And it was looking at like my ambivalence and kind of difficulty towards current affairs, especially in relation to the war in Gaza. And so that was the final poem, I think, that won that. And I think it's quite an odd poem because in some ways that poem is kind of like a classic paper poem, But I think the way that I performed it, because it's something that I really felt very passionate about, because I think current affairs can be so overwhelming,
Yes.
We were speaking about this earlier where, you don't know where you are and you have so much feeling for what's going on there, but you don't know what to do with that feeling and you feel helpless, and even if you may be donating, you still have these pictures of real human life being destroyed, and we're powerless, and then what do you do with that when you're tied up into these kind of mundane activities, and you have to be bound to those activities, but also you're bound to the fear of your inaction, and the consequences. So kind of I wanted to kind of like wrap all those different feelings together, and I thought like a poem that had repetition of something very mundane and then something very stark could do that. So I won with that poem, and then the other poem that I read was Branding, the one about Nike that I referred to.
On the night on the 6th of November, could you do one of those poems, like perform it as you did when you won the slam?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. Yeah.
And the other thing is, because you showed me a poem that is on very public display, would that also be a Villanelle?
Yes, that's a Villanelle, that one as well. Yeah, patterns. So that's part of the collaboration with an artist,
okay,
Kemi, and that was for the Swerve magazine. Swerve.
Okay. So because I was wondering about it, that the poem is dedicated to her and to other people.
Yeah, I think Mitch, the editor, is a genius, and she's an amazing person, but also she just has a way of collaborating the right people together. So Henny, and I never met Henny, the artist, before. And then when we started working together, we realized that we're both dyslexic. We both love baking cake. And we both had mothers in their 90s. And strangely enough, which is really bizarre, both our mothers died this year. So both our mothers died in the same year. And Henny was the main carer for her mother. And so that poem Patterns, which is in Jerry O'Sullivan Park in Granabra in Cork. Yeah, that poem Patterns is about both our mothers. And also, I suppose it's just looking at how their decline, but also their beauty and the way that they shine to us, but also the sadness of what we've lost from, their aging and decline.
Okay, so, yeah. Thank you. That's a beautiful project. Yeah, that you did. You have just finished an MA in creative writing. Is that correct? And how did you experience that? Did that give your writing a boost? Has it been a good experience? The MA?
Yeah, it was a brilliant experience. It was such a brilliant experience, and I just miss being in the lectures because it was just it opened me up to so many different writers. And also I really thrive from criticism. I'm quite a prolific writer, so if I kind of get into a space, I could write many poems at once. And then being dyslexic as well, I kind of crave feedback, So the workshops for me were brilliant. I just love the workshops, but I think I can overwhelm people because,
you're there.
Yeah, if you're in any kind of a group, so I missed. So, and yeah, there were so many authors who, it was so precious to be exposed to so much literature. So there was poetry and prose that I studied, and I think it depends really, on everyone has a different style, learning. And I suppose for me, I wanted something more formal, and something where, I was there with people for a set time. So yeah, I got a lot out of it. And I think my writing's just improved so much.
What are your plans with, I mean, we have to sort of keep it
okay, sorry.
short. Yeah. That hasn't happened, obviously. What are your plans with writing in the near future? What are you going to read for us? And can you tell us about the workshop?
Okay. Well, I'm in, just to have a little bit of a pitch, is that okay? I'm doing Sling Slang at Maureen's on the 28th of October. And then I'm delighted to be doing DeBarra's. And just before I read, do a little workshop on movement and poetry. And Keith Payne, who was the eco poet a few years ago in Cork City, he did a workshop on movement and poetry. And it's just basically because we're not just brains, and words don't kind of just float in the air, not attached to anything else. We're physical human beings, and we respond to things in a very physical, real way. And so for me, when I did the workshop, we would read poetry walking up and down, not reading sitting down or standing still. And then as you read, you kind of respond to the grammar in some way, so you'd respond to a comma, maybe a pause or stop, or, you'd respond to the different syllables or tones of a word with your body by some kind of movement.
Okay, so people don't have to fear that they will be asked to do acrobatics while reading poetry.
Not at all. And literally, like you can actually just sit down and move fingers or toes, or you don't have to have any major acrobatic ability at all. No. Okay. And then what happens is that even with someone's name, I suppose maybe a good example would be there was there was an example, like an exercise that we did, and I saw. I mean, I was probably just thinking about my mum, but I saw the number 90 on the wall, and I was just making the number 90,
Did you see
90.
it for real, or did you project it in your mind?
I actually can't remember. I can't remember, but my mum was so kind of big in my mind. This was a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, and so I kept on kind of making her age and then my own age. The numbers. And then I was doing it kind of. I think first of all with my hands, then I was doing it with my body, and then from there, I kept on having a sentence in my head. Um, and I kept repeating that sentence, and it inspired a poem, because the movements inspired words, and it can happen the other way around where words inspire poems. I mean, some people do kind of taste sounds, or they have a different sensation about a different sensory sensation. And I'm not saying that you need that to be part of the workshop, but I'm just saying that it can connect your body to the sounds that we're making, and also to the concepts and the expressions that we have. And I think it's a very natural thing, because I mean, oh, look at me, I'm talking with my hands and I'm moving my head. So and that's something many of us do.
Yeah.
We move
Especially when you're
and communicate anyway.
poetry, or you're
That's part of
talking.
our expression. And so I think sometimes when, as writers, we actually quash that expression. So the workshop is just basically, come and just express yourself. You don't have to be, a Russian ballerina. You don't have to be a big hip hop dancer or anything like that. You can just see where movement takes your words, and see where words take your movement. And we'll obviously have just a little section afterwards, and people are welcome to do it or not, where there's a writing exercise as well. And again, no one has to share, because when I've been to different workshops, sometimes I don't share, because I'm dyslexic, and sometimes the things that I come out with, I need to go away and work about myself. But
Yeah.
it's just to say that movement is a natural part of our communication, and that can inspire more communication, and they can work together. So let's kind of release ourselves into that a little bit more. That's all it is.
No, as the potential facilitator, I would say people are also very much invited to share if they want, because there will be an open mic after your reading. So
Definitely,
really
definitely. If
great
they
to
want
hear.
to, or share something they've already done
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
But yeah, they're very, because I know sometimes people do amazing things in short space of time, and sometimes people want to go away and work on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited
Yeah,
about
me
it.
too.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that workshop. It will be donation based. And my one question was, what are your long-term plans with writing? Are you going to write a novel? Are you going to work on a poetry collection? Do you have anything in mind, or are you just going with the flow for the moment?
Um, like, because I'm quite a busy mum, I'm always missing deadlines, submission deadlines, But I've got quite a few collections already from the MA and from things that I've done. But I need to actually submit. But I'm kind of going with the flow, kind of, but then I'm kind of working out how to go with the flow. I suppose it's not completely contradicting myself, but I just feel that there are things that I want to put out there, but I'm not kind of sure when and how, and it's finding the time as well. So I'd love writing to be more and more of a priority, but I've got one child who's still 12, one who's 16, and they're, very demanding.
I'd
So
say you're doing quite well. You're in a park. You're a poetry, slam poetry champion. Great to
yeah,
go.
I'm really happy. I'm so delighted, and I just, I want to carry on writing, and I'd love to carry on doing workshops as well. I'm doing another workshop with the Carrick Centre
Okay.
in Ballincollig, and that's going to be on Christmas poems, and just to give poems as a gift.
Okay, that's lovely.
Yeah, to
That's a
people.
great idea.
Yeah, instead of
You're full of great ideas.
at the moment, because everything's so expensive, so we
Yeah.
all feel really squeezed. So a poem as a present is just a gorgeous gift, and something that people remember for many, many
Yeah.
years. Something that draws you closer to your, loved ones. And
Okay. I really look forward to working with you on the
thank
6th.
you.
Maybe. Okay, thank you.